If you want to see a series where Chidi Mokeme is supposed to look like a grandfather just because he's wearing a scrotum on his head, a story about internet fraud and AI where you will learn nothing about those subjects because this is a Nigerian production, and a show which makes you think, damn, I wonder who made this beautiful soundtrack. Kemi Adetiba's To Kill a Monkey is the show for you. First of all, I am not a fan of reviewing series. Each review I write is about 2,000 to 4,000 words. So when I have to watch a series, it immediately takes a lot of the joy out of it because now I have to watch basically 8 mini movies and I just don't have the patience or the interest in connecting stories across all those many episodes. For To Kill a Monkey, I'll be doing an initial review of the first 4 episodes and we'll probably do another part for the remaining 4 if this particular video does well. So here we go. Apparently, this series is highly anticipated. Unfortunately, I never actually heard of it until it showed up on the What Kept Me Up movie calendar that I used to do these reviews. Sorry, I'm very bad at my job. Now, Kemi Adetiba, if you don't know, is the brain behind such Hollywood hits like Wedding Party and The King of Boys. This particular series features William Benson, Bucci Franklin, who I saw for the first time in Landline and for the second time in The Weekend. You can check my Landline and Paris reviews for those movie reviews. And Chidi Mokeme as a revolving door of characters that entertain us with their desperation, ruthlessness, and determination. Now, on to the story. Efemini Edewo. I don't even know why they give poor people surnames in movies. Nobody cares. Efemini is played by William Benson and is a man who is completely down on his luck in life. He is hungry, his wife Nusa is heavily pregnant, his mother is late and patiently waiting to be buried. His village people are after him, both literally and metaphorically, because his uncles just really want that expensive burial for his mother so that they can finally eat beef in Tinubu's Nigeria. Efemini learns programming and AI stuff by night while being heavily indebted to the restaurant he works at, doing whatever mysterious thing that a programmer might be doing at a local restaurant. I don't think they actually ever tell us. To make matters worse, his boss wants to sleep with him before granting him many more loans or favors. Now, he has barely eaten real food, but this our Ife guy is certainly full of moral fiber. This guy is just too poor for all this righteousness. Like, the moment my wife got pregnant with triplets and I realized that I had failed as a man, I would have just bought one big red G string, plenty of coconut oil, and opened an OnlyFans. Like, oh, no, okay, no, not coconut oil, maybe groundnut oil because coconut oil is expensive. Our guy is humiliated in many different ways before he runs into Obos, an old acquaintance whose life he once saved after the latter was stabbed and left for dead by the roadside. Now, in this particular restaurant scene, Bucci Franklin, who plays Obos, remembered that the rent on his overpriced white shortlet looking Lekki apartment was due and decided to act his heart out using just his eyes. Like I said before, his eyes are perfectly designed to emote viciousness, and he played it up 100% in this scene where basically he is the predator and the rest of us are prey. This particular restaurant scene is basically the reason why this review exists at all. Obos is a big boy leading other big boys, especially this Aussie guy who Obos is maybe obviously sleeping with or what. Because why does he always just look so hot and jealous all the time? Like, guy, come on. Obos is very excited to finally run into Ife and showers his blessings and appreciations in terms of money on him. Now, Ife desperately begs to be retained and trained in the Obos School of Financial Independence. And well, it turns out that Obos is an internet fraudster doing romance scams. And suddenly, Ife the hungry beggar is now full of moral fiber again. If his burden of righteousness quickly dissipates when his laptop is stolen and replaced by a block of wood before an important pitch, and if you have ever entered Computer Village in Lagos without checking in on the phone in your pocket while innocent looking boys ask you for directions, you know the vibe. His wife's cousin suddenly comes to join them and the twins. He lost one of the triplets after birth, and everything just goes just so out of hand that he has no choice but to go out and cry in the rain that is conveniently falling. Now, this is another Hollywood affectation by Nigerian movies and Nigerian writers because I can assure you that you cannot effectively weep in a Lagos thunderstorm because you will just be too busy trying not to drown where you stand, especially if you live in Lekki, at which point you have to go and cry with your diving suit. In the end, Efe tucks his tail between his legs and returns to Obos with the idea of using AI and deepfakes to advance internet romance scams. An idea which was completely alien to Obos and which promises to make them filthy rich. They agree on a profit sharing basis instead of salary because if he acknowledged that he will be producing all the effort and taking on a lot of risk. The concept sounded really interesting, but I'm sorry because if you think that you will learn anything interesting about the details of this operation, aside this initial pitch, or even how it is that Obos doesn't immediately sack everyone else and just retains Efe, because what are the rest of the boys now even doing? I have an Eiffel Tower in Ghana to sell you. Kemi Adetiba is not immune to my aphorism that you can never ever learn anything in a Nigerian movie. If it has to do with any level of depth or details, just count Nigerian writers out. We have a subplot where we follow a long-winded side story that follows Mo, an anti-fraud specialist played by Bimbo Akintola, as she experiences and walks through the loss of her husband and two sons. She's currently seeing a therapist to deal with her loss and hallucinations, and nothing interesting happens. We'll leave that for now. But I must mention that the show doesn't really edit her well into the story because every now and then they would show her and Efe in their respective environments doing things, and you think that something dramatic was about to happen or connect them together, but I don't know, nothing then happens. I found it weird, and I also mostly blame the dramatic score sometimes. I was also quite surprised to see Stella Damasos in this series. I can't remember the last time I saw her on screen. I don't know, 10, 15 years, I don't even know. But she's such a beautiful woman. Like, damn. So fast forward 4 years into the future, and these people, Efemini and Obos, now have beachfront houses and are taking yachts for test drives. And Obos's wife's fingernails are just so long as to make the hands basically useless for anything aside stabbing her enemy's eyes out. Because what is this? We are at the fourth birthday of Ife's twins, though I recall they only talk about and show the girl, Susu, where a tragedy is narrowly averted when Susu goes missing for a moment before Ife gets a cryptic message and discovers that his daughter was locked in a freezer by some unknown people. It turns out that the fraudsters, that's basically Obos, have an enemy in the person of an older fraudster called the teacher. Now, this teacher guy has been demanding 30% tax from Obos because the new tech bros have basically beaten him at his own game. So, oh, and note that the teacher is an elderly man played by. What is this head? He's an elderly man played by Chidi Mokeme, and it was such a silly characterization. I don't know. He does not at all look elderly at all. He does not look like a grandfather. Like, what is all this? He certainly does not look like an old man, not with this very smooth scrotum that is stretched over his head. I winced every time he was shown on screen because I don't know how anyone on set thought that this would be believable. From the talentless makeup artist to the cameraman who had to just shoot this, and Kemi Adetiba, who has maybe never seen an old man in her life before. Like, Lord, what is this? The teacher, impatient for his tax, attempts a hit on Obos, forcing a retaliation where Obos takes out his two granddaughters in a highly unlikely and unnecessary car bomb. Unlikely because I would like to know how you happened to rig a Bentley with a bomb. Like, what? Obos didn't realize that the bomb missed its mark, so he went out celebrating that night while the teacher retaliates against Efe's child, Susu, who was still in hospital. Thankfully, Nosa, his wife, was alerted to the intruder. Also, I think the doctor at this Evercare hospital just wants to inject something bigger than a syringe into Stella Damasos. But, who can blame him? I mean, have you seen Stella Damasos at 47? At the club, Efe and Obos start to quarrel because Efe was really, really fine with paying the teacher his 30% tax in order to just keep his family safe. But Obos is set against it, the principle of the thing. Oblivious that the teacher had survived the car bomb and that, he had some guys basically on the club already. Obos is soon distracted by this Delta soap advert when there's a much finer Dudu on shoe just beside her. But what do I know? I'm just a poor person who can see color, eh? The anti-fraud official, Mo, is somehow onto a femini, an acclaimed businessman, though we don't really know the business cover he uses because this is a Nigerian movie, so the writers don't know either. She keeps seeing, story of his mishaps with his daughter on the news, and then she finally remembers him as the guy she once saw screaming at the nurses some years ago about how broke he was the night that Mo herself was in hospital to identify her late husband and children's bodies. The movie does try to make a tenuous connection to a fae, but it's not very convincing for me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe when I watch the last four episodes, it will all make sense. But I don't know. I just didn't buy it. Mo is basically trying to work her way back up to her former rank because for some reason she was demoted after taking a 4 year break from work, even though she had just been promoted when her husband and her children were killed. So she's basically just working her way up now. Her friends have abandoned her. She's basically just on the jump up floor. She also strikes up a friendship with her boss, who is an inspector and who somehow acts a bit like a child. I don't know. I don't like his facial expressions. I don't know. He acts like he's in a comedy or something. And so he's able to help her get things done, especially as people are just basically calling her crazy Mo because her mental health issues are common knowledge at this point. I would have liked very much if the filmmakers had established Mo's credentials. Yes, sure, she was just getting promoted the first time we see her, but it would have been nice to have followed her through at least the case that maybe made it necessary for her to be promoted, so that we just get an insight into how these people catch the internet fraud or something, just some sort of background so that we know that the writers know what they are talking about. But as always, this is always the problem with all these Nigerian products. They never ever write any detail. They tell you the gist and expect you to take it at face value. And so ends the first four episodes of this show. For my verdict so far, I really like William Benson's acting a lot. That's Efemini Edewo. My only gripe with him is that he draws me out of his world when he switches his pitch to English language instead of pidgin because he suddenly sounds super educated, like he went to Oxford or something, which is not really in keeping with his upbringing and character, I think. He uses the sound quite thickly, and I found it distracting most of the time. Aside that, I believe William Benson was fantastic in this role. I also really like as he's the main character because I don't think that Bucci Franklin would have been able to pull it off because this is a morally grey role. Now, Bucci Franklin's gaunt look makes him fantastic as a villain, but it also makes it difficult for him to be the lead character because if he's not busy looking evil, he will just look malnourished, right? And so, in that manner, I don't think he has like the physicality to, I don't know, to be like a lead character in this particular setting. I saw him in The Weekend where the character was a bit morally grey, right? But I don't he sold it well, but I think it could have been more convincing. Now, William Benson, on the other hand, has a very convincing sad face. He has the physicality. He's just fantastic at it. This is also my first time seeing him, I think. He looks familiar, but I can't tell where I've seen him before. Oh, I checked, and it was a lawyer in Suki. I have a review for that one too on my channel. Now, the true star of this series is the score, which I think was pretty insane right from the first episode. Like, big ups to the composer and the sound engineer. The score was fantastic. I loved it. All right, so that will be all for the review of the first four episodes. If you want me to watch the other four, then well, maybe do well to share this with your friends. Maybe let's say maybe 2,000 views, and you get the final review. You can also follow me on Twitter and IG on Equi Reviews. And boy, I hope this series doesn't disappoint me like Baby Fam did. All right, I'll see you on the next one. Maybe.